We will go to items requiring individual action, non-consent. Proposed resolution number 19066, a resolution authorizing a license for the construction of a recreational vehicle park on 12.665 acres of land on lots 6 and 7, Camellia Plaza, Port Arthur, Jefferson County, Texas, located behind the Three Rivers Inn at the eastern corner of Texas 73 and West Port Arthur Road. Mayor Pro Tem?
Make a motion.
I need Councilmember Swati.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve proposed resolution number 19066. Questions? City manager or city attorney, based on the information that, do you want to speak on behalf of this?
I think the city manager may want to.
One of you all, I need one of you all to speak on behalf of this. City manager?
We have a recommendation.
Madam Mayor, thank you. You'll see in your packets that we put together a quick little cover memo on this item. You'll also see that staff is not recommending approval. We're recommending denial of this particular item. We've got some issues that we need to deal with our code. Our code is pretty old in terms of how it deals with RV parks, for example. Today's RVs have slide outs, and our width requirements for a lot of our lots are not adequate. So we need to work on those. But the other issue here is that these RV parks, as they become prolific with a lot of the construction jobs that we're attracting to Port Arthur, they come in here and they ask for a permit of the council, and then when we put these RV parks in and we permit them, we have people that are living in our city that are not paying motel tax dollars, nor are they renting an apartment from some of the folks that build apartments in Port Arthur. So that's really staff's concern above and beyond the items that we have that are related to the codes that we'll be working on going forward. But certainly it's at the council's pleasure whether or not you would like to issue this permit or not. It's simply, and we haven't done an in-depth look at it. This one was actually kept off the agenda last time so that we could meet with the individual that's requesting this permit. I'll be happy to answer any questions that council may have. But, you know, from our perspective, the issue really here is that we have hotel motel tax that folks would be paying if they were staying at one of our hotels, and we want to make sure we fill up those hotel rooms, and or if these construction jobs are going to be here for a long period of time, we have lots of residential apartment units we would like them to be directed to as well. So that is our recommendation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Lewis.
City manager, on the hotel motel tax on long term, that is exempt, isn't it? Isn't there some kind of condition on that?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it is. After 30 days, they'd be exempt from that if they stayed in the hotel longer than that.
You know, city manager, I hear what you're saying about it appeared to be some kind of a conflict, not really a conflict, or competition with the hotels and with the rental properties that's available in the area. It has that appearance that it's competing. One of the things we've had these problems in the past, city manager, with the ambulance service and those kind of things. Other businesses, you see down there where we got HEB at, well, existing grocery, they wanted the council not to move the road because competition was coming in. What I'm getting at, city manager, and for your consideration, I'm not going to interfere with the free enterprise. I'm not going to interfere with free enterprise. Everybody ought to have the right to fail. You ought to have the right to go into business and try things. An RV park, and I don't know all of, and we're not going to approve this today anyway, but an RV park is a part of the free enterprise, and we don't want to interfere with that. I do not. And I voted against interfering with the free enterprise system in the past, and I will continue to do that. It's my belief that everybody ought to have an opportunity to develop their lands within the legal laws and whatever. Everybody ought to have an opportunity to go into some kind of business, and basically everybody ought to have the right to fail without interference.
Councilmember Swati.
City Manager, can we ask Mr. Burton to come forward and kind of explain the recommendation he made that was given with this with our agenda regarding this item?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Yes.
Morning, sir.
Councillors, part of the requirement of establishing an RV park in the city of Port Arthur is to allow the applicant to apply for a license from the council before investing a decent amount of money in the engineering part of that project. What we have seen in the past, and I'm talking from experience here, over the last 8 years, council has never approved an RV park in the city of Port Arthur, and that's because of the fact over the years we have felt that, well, council have felt that, the aesthetics of it's not pleasing in many areas where those parks have been established, and two, to some extent, it takes away from the motel tax. And so the ordinance that was designed by the last city attorney made it much more easier for the applicant to come forward and apply for a license before council instead of investing a sizable amount of money in purchasing the property and other engineering costs. And so what we have done, we have worked with those applicants and informed them, listen, we have had a history here when Motiva has developed, when Motiva was in expansion several years ago, where the appetite for council was not for RV parks. Okay, so we're informing you, please don't go ahead and invest any sizable amount of money. Let's go ahead and do the due diligence that's necessary in order that you get the license that's necessary before you proceed to invest in the purchase of property and that sort of thing. And so we have met with this applicant here, and we looked at the property that is available. The property is at the back of Three Rivers Hotels out there on West Port Arthur Road and Highway 73. And we have met with the city manager as well as with the assistant city attorney. One of the issues that we have had in the past, Councillor, is the implementation, and those of you who have been on council for quite some time will remember, is the implementation of the current ordinance, where as the city manager indicated, the ordinance is so cumbersome, it puts the onus on the city to continue to police those RV parks, and the no revenue really, or let me rephrase this, very little revenue is being generated, from policing those RV parks. We have had the attorney from this applicant come before you before and made recommendations, as to how we should go about, looking at the current ordinance and making it less cumbersome as it is. And as the city manager indicated, there has been a lot of development with RVs over the period of years, and our ordinance does not reflect those true developments. And so what we are doing at this stage is making a recommendation to you so that it provides us with enough time to critically analyze the ordinance, and the assistant city attorney is working on that with us. We will critically analyze the ordinance and provide an opportunity for the city to derive some much needed revenue from policing those RV parks as well. So what we're saying, as the city manager indicated, it's in your hands. We're not saying a flat-out denial of this license, but at least it will buy us some time where we can look at the ordinance, we can make certain recommendations, and we can come back to you, in order to address the concerns that we have.
City Attorney?
I just wanted to also say, as he stated, Mr. Shabasi, Attorney Shabasi worked on this matter, and he may be able to shed some light. He also sent you a memo if he can
Mr. Shabasi?
elaborate.
I think Mr. Burton.
Before you, Sam, get to the mic first.
Okay, I think Mr. Burton summed it up pretty well. Some of our problem is the ordinance, and then this applicant is not necessarily in compliance with that ordinance too. He has another RV park, Access RV Park. He owns an RV park on 95th Street, and that's actually been a controversy for the city. It hasn't been resolved yet. And so I'm doing some studies on price per acre when it comes to RV park versus hotel, and how much we generate hotel occupancy taxes and things like that. It's actually one of TML's great legislative pushes right now, is to institute a transient occupancy tax on RVs as well, because there's a disparity between And some of the study that I did, I looked at that new hotel on 2700 Port Plaza, which is the newest hotel we have in this jurisdiction. And generally, a hotel will generate 10 times the amount of hotel or revenue, city ad valorem tax revenue per acre over an RV park, but also generate about $120,000 in hotel occupancy tax a year. In fact, Mr. Monroe at Access RV Park, he's been running these park model units in his RV park, which are, it's in the memo, it discusses what he's doing. And Mr. Fox, who's his attorney, has come before council requesting an ordinance change. I think he did twice in about 2010. And that wasn't approved by council. The council never really moved forward on that. And he's still technically in violation of our ordinance. And so we need to look at our ordinance and see if there's a way to amend it. I think it needs amendment. I'm actually working on that now. One of the big problems is for us, if you approve it now, then we've effectively grandfathered in this project. And if we wanted to change the ordinance later on, it's too difficult. We can't. It'd be very difficult to take away that license at that point. So my recommendation is to look into the ordinance first and then potentially approve that project that Mr. Monroe is seeking approval of.
Before you step down, Val, your light's on. Do you want to? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead on.
So, I mean, if you have any questions, I'll answer them. But
Councilmember Hamilton?
How long will it take for us to complete this process? You mentioned that back in 2010 that it began and some questions arise, but council never moved forward with it. So we can't change what happened in the past, but
it won't take that long. They were petitioning for an ordinance change to accommodate their business model out of fear that they recognize that they are in violation of the ordinance as well. But the ordinance honestly is vague. From my perspective, it could go either way. It's very wordy, cumbersome, like Mr. Burton has said. Personally, it's very hard to follow. You'll find that anybody from planning and zoning or maybe code enforcement would agree with that. And there's actually some issues with regard to enforcement. Ultimately, the applicant was cited. He ended up appealing up his citation up to county court, and county court sat on it for a while and effectively dismissed it recently. And I think it was about November of 2014. So all that rigmarole, we didn't get any result from it, and he's effectively still running the business, still in violation of the ordinance.
well, if it's wordy and it could go either way, then
I can't get beyond a reasonable doubt on a
yeah,
vague
so
ordinance.
we can't say
Right.
truly he's in violation or not. But I just want to promote and thank you for working on this. But please, let's move as expeditiously as possible, because we don't want to prevent business from happening in our city.
No,
Or
it's
discourage further business.
it's not something that'll take very long. I mean, if I work on it immediately, I can have it done. I don't think this land is going where he says he has a closing date, I think, of August 19th, and so it technically could be on the next agenda item and approved. But I don't think that land is going anywhere. It's not the most marketable piece of property that I know of, but it's going to be right behind that Three Rivers, and so it's a I think it's a good project for the city. It'll develop land that is otherwise undeveloped, but my recommendation is you seek a ordinance update before approval of it, because if you approve it today, you're approving it under the prior ordinance.
Mr. Shabasi,
Yes, ma'am.
I know that there are no residents within 200 feet of that, because I know where it is. But how do you think the residents would feel that live in both, Palomar and Lakeside? Oh, yeah, that live out there, to have an RV park right across the highway from them?
Well, that initially was part of the problem with the 95th Street development. I think one of the developers out there had an issue with the RV park, but and that's what instigated the whole thing. It brought our attention to it. I don't know what the objections would be. I know that residential areas is pretty far from. I don't know how far it is technically in absolute terms, but I don't know. I haven't spoken to anybody about that. I guess that's what the council's for.
Well,
the
the thing
council
about
would
it-
receive commentary from the citizens regarding whether or not to approve this.
And I don't know in absolute terms either how far it is, but it's in the front yard of both additions.
Mhm.
I don't care how you look at it.
Sure.
So that's why it was,
And I think
I was-
that's the 95th Street project that initially that they were very, they mandated certain fencing requirements and things like that. And that's another opportunity when you amend your ordinance, you'll be able to institute certain building standards for an RV park. That's one of the things, one of the luxuries you have when it comes to approving or disapproving under a new scheme.
Councilmember Mosley.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, Mr. Shabazzi.
Morning, sir.
What I would like to see when you do go back and kind of do some further studies on this before you'll come back before council, I kind of like the idea of show me the best case scenario, show me the positives and the negatives, and give us a pretty good idea, what we're looking at, apples to apples, oranges to oranges. Because I'm not sure, and I don't think I recognize this in the city's future master plan. So maybe that's something what we might need to look at
Sure.
in regards to the future master plan based on these positives and negatives, whether this is something that we want to continue investing in, because if they start popping up all around town, then you've got communities, that have RV parks in every area of the city. And again, as the mayor indicated, it's going to kind of be an issue where we're having now little pockets and communities of citizens coming in and complaining that they don't want this in their neighborhood.
Sure. And that,
So-
like a delay would give you opportunity to receive commentary from citizens who want to voice that concern about an RV park there. Ultimately, there are positives and there are negatives to an RV development, another RV park in the community. I outlined some of the things that we need to consider. It's going to detract from our hotel occupancy tax. It's going to detract from potential apartment occupancy and potentially some residential property. There's a lot of people are coming in, and the one thing that we always use, in the ordinance protected against people just planting RVs here and staying long term, because there's a 3-month limitation on how much you can park an RV. There's supposed to be a 3-month limitation on it, but that put the onus on us to enforce it actively, and it's not being enforced actively, that 3-month limitation. And so there's probably a lot of people coming in, parking their RVs for when they're here, and they can be here a year, 6 months to a year, never really pay their fair share, use our infrastructure, and then head out of town whenever they're done, on to the next project, wherever it may be.
Because I've been kind of curious, it's an RV park, so is it commercial, is it residential? Because, folks are living short periods of time, that makes them mobile, and most hotels are established in one particular location, so that makes them stable. So what is it? Is it because are they supposed to be in commercial locations, or are they allowed to be in residential locations? How does it?
I think it's
the
planned
zoning?
development, and they're considered planned development.
They can be light commercial, heavy commercial, industrial, or in this case, the planned development district.
Paul, if you're going to speak, I'm going to have to,
Yeah.
Paul, if you want to speak, I'm going to ask you to come to the mic, to the front.
Because if they're supposed to be
I'm sorry, ma'am.
considered
That's okay.
commercial locations, then they're not going to be allowed to be put in residential areas.
Correct.
Is that correct?
They can go in light commercial, heavy commercial, industrial, and in this situation, it's a planned development district that allows light commercial and some heavy commercial uses. So
But that's not
it is
residential.
zoned properly for an RV park to be located there.
But that's not residential.
It's not residential.
Okay, so that eliminates a large portion of society when we say they can't be put in residential areas.
It's in that sense, it's considered like a motel hotel. That they have to go in light commercial also.
Okay.
A hotel cannot go in a single family zoned residential zone. Just
Okay.
as an RV park cannot.
All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Swagi?
Morning, Sam. Sam, you had mentioned some controversy earlier, and then does this have to do with the park model RVs?
Yeah, the park model
This
units. He's
contention.
effectively operating hotels without paying hotel occupancy tax.
Okay.
And so he has these FEMA trailers that he puts. They're FEMA trailers. I don't know. They have wheels. They're on trailers. They're like 400 square foot rooms, and he puts them in his RV park, attaches them to the water and sewage and electricity and whatnot, and charges about $200 a week. And there hasn't been any
And
hotel occupancy.
this isn't subject to any occupancy
It
tax?
is. It is.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Technically, the state of Texas is very broad in what they consider a hotel, and you see this controversy on the media a lot. There's that web service Airbnb, that anything, even a person who rents out their home for less than 30 days, for 30 days straight, is technically obligated to pay hotel occupancy tax. It's just that the enforcement is very difficult, and this is one of those situations that the enforcement of that is very difficult, and you have to go to district court. And so what my recommendation will be potentially is that we might allow these, put restrictions on them, allow them, but tax them as hotels. And we've talked about that with Mr. Monroe's representatives. I mean, yeah, and then that would be on equal footing more. But there are no hotel occupancy taxes on RVs, and technically they're still using our infrastructure but not paying. That's the disparity between a hotel and an RV park. And that's why RV parks are so lucrative, and everybody wants to develop them. That's the limitation we put, though, is that we don't want to burden our hotel owners who are paying hotel occupancy tax and paying greater ad valorem taxes per acre. I went back and I looked at the Town Place Suites versus Access RV Park, and the Town Place Suites is paying 10 times the amount per acre in city taxes, but on top of it, they're paying us about $120,000 in hotel occupancy taxes a year as well, whereas nothing's coming from an RV park. I wanted to actually get with Dr. Johnson about the exact water usage as well, but I haven't been able to. We haven't. It's my fault. I didn't get in touch with them about it exactly. So we'd look at how much they're taxing the infrastructure as well. So there's this disparity. I know TML is working on trying to work on a transient occupancy tax where even people that come in and just stay in RVs might have a certain obligation, but that hasn't gone through the Texas legislature as of yet. So. We're caught in between, and so you have to look at potentially whether or not you want another RV park and what the impact would be on our hotels. And if we put too many RV parks, we might be limiting development of hotels. And those are, for the city, great revenue generators.
All right, thank you. I have a question for Mr. Burton. Whoever's on the computer, if you don't mind pulling up page 3 of this item on the agenda. Mr. Burton, I was reading through this, and you had made a recommendation on July 29th not to approve this because of the negative impact on the hotel industry, and then the controversy that Sam just shed some light on. So 5-6 days later, what's changed your mind about your recommendation?
Well, the recommendation remains the same, Councillor.
Okay.
If you receive, I hope you received the same memo.
Yes.
As part of the pact. Yeah.
Well, it's up on the screen right now.
Yeah. RV parks have a negative impact on hotel-motel occupancy tax. Therefore, staff
Ron,
recommends that
read into the mic.
Staff
please.
recommends that this request be denied. My recommendation remains the same until we can get on board with Sam and we work as a team to clear out all the deficiencies in the existing ordinance. Then we will be on a better footing to bring back this.
To bring back to the council. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Lewis?
Yes, one of you all spoke about the language, the confusion. What are we talking about, the confusion? Is it ambiguous language, is it ambiguity, or is it discombobulation? Any one of the three would confused me.
It's very, the former ordinance, I don't have it up, I can pull it up real quick, but there's some controversy because there's a usage known as a manufactured home park, which allows some manufactured homes in RV parks, and our RVs, a mixture of manufactured homes and RVs, and technically that might constitute a allowance if he had come to council. He never came to council and sought a manufactured home park. There was a variety of disagreement among staff members about what it meant and what it allowed. And one of the technicalities that Mr. Brown had mentioned is that these were greater than 400 square feet, that allowed greater than 400 square foot these manufactured homes in these parks, and these park model units are 400 or about 400 square feet, so technically it would be in violation. It's just, you have to look at it, and it's very vague and convoluted the way that you would, it's wordy. So, and like Mr. Fox had mentioned, the industry changed considerably. Our ordinance wouldn't even allow for slide outs, and these RVs now have slide outs that expand the space when you come park them, and technically those are all in violation of our ordinance, and that we would be selectively enforcing certain provisions of our ordinance, because technically anybody that brings an RV into our jurisdiction and it slides out would be in violation. And so we would, if you want equal application of the law, you'd have to go out there and cite those people as well.
One of the things I don't have a problem, I don't have two things. I don't have a problem with ambiguous language going into contracts. That's a personal thing. That's a private thing. But city charters should not have that kind of language in it, and I don't think our ordinances should not have that kind of a language in it. So any citizen should be able to pick up that city charter and read it just like, and it be just as plain as the red and green and amber lights going down the street. It should be no confusion in the charter, and there should not be any confused language in our city ordinance. Personal contracts, I don't have a problem, but you got to put a escape clause in it to try to hang somebody later on down the road, hang your hat on, and that give a lawyer a job.
And again, Sam, even if it says it's going to be good for, the city and supplying those taxes, I still have concerns for those two neighborhoods. Seriously, I wouldn't want a trailer park in facing me.
Sure,
So
and
I have a great concern for that. It might bring a few dollars to the city, but then it takes away from.
And bringing awareness to the issue publicly like this will probably be reported, or maybe people are watching today and they'll voice that concern. People from those neighborhoods will voice their concerns about that project. Me personally, I look at that piece of property, and it would. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it's right behind a hotel. It's kind of landlocked as well, and honestly, it will bring improvements on that land that can be taxed. It's just that you have to look at the sort of the collateral damage it might do to other businesses and maybe residential property, and that's something that would require further study. And I think 2 weeks ago was the first time I had seen this license, so we were working relatively quickly on it, but it's not something that you want to just approve just because it's put on the agenda, and it requires some deliberation. And so it's the opportunity now for the staff to deliberate on it and for council members to receive some commentary from citizens as well.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Did you have something else?
Councilmember Hamilton?
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and vote.
Hold on a second. Councilmember Scott, have you had an opportunity to speak?
No, I haven't.
Then I need to let him speak.
That's
Thank
why
you.
I was asking if your light was on, or was it just still on? I didn't recognize.
Councilmember Scott.
I'll remove-
Oh, let me do this one. Councilmember Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Sam, it seems as though you all have done your homework according to trying to put new wording in this ordinance to protect.
It'll have to be completely redone, and
Okay.
it's gonna take
So
some
if it
time.
need to be redone, it seems like you all have done the research knowing
yes,
that
sir.
it needs to
Yes,
be
sir.
done. I'm also concerned about if you get any opposition from the neighborhoods, that the ordinance language would give us enough information to discuss with citizens to support if the project is done. So, you know, we need to make sure we have language. The language is the ordinance is written where we can talk to citizens when they ask us about it and let them know that it be monitored in a way by the ordinance and by the ordinance itself. And also bring to us back what type of revenue, the pros and cons of the revenue.
And I want to, I didn't mention this before, this is the most important part, that we can still regulate RV parks according to state laws. There was a bill that was being considered by the Texas legislature that would have prevented us from even mandating certain standards on RV parks. So, and that failed, but doesn't mean that the RV industry isn't going to be pushing forward the next legislative session. So as we still have some time to amend that ordinance, we would be able to, and then you could solicit some information about what would be okay from citizens regarding where they would allow RV parks. But yeah, there are developments for our city. We want business to come into our city, but also you have to look at, like you said, the impact for residential and other businesses and whatnot. And but again, like Councilman Lewis had mentioned, we want to remain business friendly, and we just want to be on equal footing when it comes to businesses. One business like a hotel has to pay hotel occupancy tax, and here an RV park has all these benefits without the same obligations. And so there's a pricing difference there that really favors one business over the other, and then we have to look at whether or not we're putting too much of that particular business in our jurisdiction.
Yes. Well, I'm for new business coming in also,
Sure,
Sam.
sure.
But you know, being a city councilman, we're concerned about the citizens themselves.
Absolutely.
Also. That comes
Absolutely.
first. So I just want to be able to use the language and discuss it with citizens to show that this will be monitored by the ordinance that's written.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm for new businesses also, but not at the expense of our citizens.
Sure.
I mean, you
Yes,
can
ma'am.
find another place to. Now, Ron, you want to say something else before we?
Let me just say, Mayor, members of the council, the beautiful thing about this is that you as a council, you have had the foresight to approve an ordinance that provides you an opportunity to ask an applicant, to come forward first to receive a license from you. And then the issue is open for debate, and where it is that you can solicit community input on behalf of your constituents. If it was the other way around, that we have done it prior to this ordinance, the investor would have come in and invested thousands of dollars in engineering and design and would come before you and you would have denied. So I still think we're on a very good path. Here it is that we have an ordinance that just needs to be tweaked. If you give us that opportunity, we will go ahead and do our homework and we'll bring it back to you in the form in which you require, that it makes sense, both monetary and otherwise, for the city.
Okay, thank you both. Councilmember Hamilton, make it short because she has a motion on the floor.
Right. What I just wanted to say is that I'm not against the RV business, but that we have to try to strike a balance, simply because we don't want to have a bunch of hotels built in Port Arthur with some of these short-term projects in the industry and all, and then we have a lot of hotels that have become bird hotels, okay? And we don't want that to be. So if this short-term process works, that we get folks hired, people spend a little money in Port Arthur, maybe we don't get a great deal of taxes, but at least we have folks spending money in the city buying gas and things like that, and then that may end, as opposed to having a bunch of hotels, and when the project's in, now we got a bunch of bird houses. That's just not going to work. So I feel like we just need to try to make sure we maintain a balance. Thank you, Mayor.
Now, Councilmember Hamilton, if you want to make a motion to. And I don't think you really need to at this point because it's over without having more lights. It's been moved and seconded that we approve proposed resolution number 19066. City Secretary, would you do a roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Frank?
No.
Councilmember Hamilton? No. Councilmember Lewis? No. Councilmember Mosley? No. Councilmember Scott?
No.
Councilmember Swati?
No.
Mayor Prince?
No.
Measure fails.
Thank you.